Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the United States of a Movie podcast. We're the movie podcast that tries to answer that unanswerable question as we try to define each state in the United States by just one movie. My name is Ollie Pechku. I love movies. I've always loved movies. I grew up with VHS tapes and watched them a gajillion times like so many people just like me. I used to host a movie show on Cinemax in Asia called ePad on Max, and I just love talking about movies. And fortunately for me, I have two amazing co-hosts that love to do exactly the same thing. So let's get things started. Welcome to the show. First of all, Ryan Sandler, who is currently wearing a shirt the same color as his face. Welcome back to the show, Ryan.
Oh, it's so great to be here. And I think after this week, I used to love movies, and I don't even know anymore. I'm a wreck right now.
There's one particular movie that I know all of us are gagging to talk about because we want to tear it to shreds. But before we do that, we have to also welcome back the master of tearing movies to shreds, that even though when they're great like Twister. Let's welcome back Will Hirsch. Welcome to the show, buddy.
And I get messages like from friends who tell me I'm wrong, like to this day since that episode dropped. So
As
you could say your takes are so hot they could melt steel beams.
Oh,
yeah. Never forget.
This.
And my fit for right now, I just wanted to give a shout out to Matt McCarthy, friend of the podcast, guest on the podcast, had a great show in LA last night. It was a great time. So just wanted to get that out there.
Thank you for that plug. And we will now be diverting 90% of our energy to one of the movies of the three that we have selected.
A movie that took me 2 weeks to watch.
Yeah. I honestly did pause it about 15 times.
Oh my God.
At one point, to rant to Mrs. To a level where she said, "Hey man, chill out." And I was like, no! Okay, we're gonna get to this because the state we're taking down this week, we're doing well. We're approaching the finish line for season 1. And I didn't know much about this state. It's the state of Vermont.
It's the whitest state you know.
Wow, you are
Very
not
much.
wrong. There was so much whiteness. If it wasn't for Jay Chandrasekhar turning up in one of our movies, it
Thank
would have
God.
been the lily whitest week of them all. I mean, one of those movies was just, I had trouble, even as a white person, telling the white people apart.
Oh my God. Yeah. Especially move my pick.
Definitely.
Could not tell you.
Yeah, two of those characters looked exactly the same. In fact, why don't we do that? Will, why don't you introduce the movie that you brought to the table?
So I brought a movie. I'm a fan of this. I do like it. It's not top tier, but I do like it. It's nostalgic. I brought Dead Poet Society only because when I looked it up online, I saw that Wolf was supposed to take place in Vermont, and I was like, perfect. I've never seen it. Very Witches of Eastwick adjacent. I'm excited. Within 2 minutes, they're out of Vermont and never go back to it for the rest of the movie.
Still counts, though. We were trying to say.
Hey, man, we thread the needle with Daryl. You know, we started and ended in Virginia, so we were okay. But yes, initially we were going to go with Wolf, as Will was saying. So Jack Nicholson, Michelle Pfeiffer, and I was quite excited. And in fact, I got 10 seconds from renting that movie for this podcast before I realized we weren't supposed to be doing it, because I remembered your text thread, or at least, well, I never read the text thread because you guys, I put my phone on silent for, I don't even know if it was an hour, but 122 text messages from these two about one of these movies, which we're about to get to.
We wrote more than J.R. Tolkien.
It was one of those rare instances where Will and I actually were aligned and watched the movie together and did a live exchange, so much so that, Ollie, had you read all of those text messages, you wouldn't have even needed to have watched the film. It would have just It perfectly encapsulated everything.
And I want to bring the audience up to speed that we are currently now, again, not talking about Dead Poets Society. We're talking about this other movie that we are consumed about. But yes, Will brought the 1989 movie Dead Poets Society, directed by Peter Weir, who has been on this podcast before with Witness, and also directed the greatest movie ever made, Master and Commander of the Far Side.
Agreed. Yep. I was like, what state is that in? They go to Florida, right? They go to Florida?
A state of water. I'm going to figure it out, guys. We're going to have Waterworld, Master and Commander, and something else. Oh, Aquaman. So we can find make Will watch it.
I'm sticking with the last 20 minutes of Aquaman 2, which might be the most insane shit I've ever seen in my entire life.
But
so many questions Society, I don't want any of them answered. It's great.
Dead Poets Society stars Robin Williams, Robert Sean Leonard, who many people probably know as House's friend from the TV show House, Ethan Hawke, Josh Charles, Kurtwood Smith. Yes, this is technically a prequel to RoboCop. Yes, Dead Poets Society, and I'm much like Will. I like this movie. I like this movie because I saw it. Honestly, I mean, I went to schools like this. You know, I'm a boarding school kid.
We had a text exchange. We were watching another movie last night, and you're like, "Oh, I like this because it takes place in a boarding school." I went to a boarding school. I'm like, "Oh, did you? Because you never bring it up." To the listener at home, if you're confused, Ollie went to boarding school in Vermont.
Did I? Yes, yeah. Well, I might as well have gone to, because this place was very similar to the boarding school that I went to. Just with more suicides. We'll get back to that though.
Just the one. Just the one.
They put that in the brochure.
While Will and Ryan were able to watch one movie together this week, Ryan and I were able to watch a movie together. Ryan, tell us the movie that you brought to the table.
Oh man, I brought a movie I remember seeing in the theater. And I remember loving so much when I saw it. And this is one of those, I was worried, I haven't seen it in a while. I was worried it really wouldn't hold up, but I picked Super Troopers from 2000. 2000. Is it 2001 or 2000?
2001, directed by Jay Chandrasekhar, which is a very easy name to say. Starring Jay Chandrasekhar, Kevin Heffernan, Brian Cox. I mean, the fact that Brian Cox turns up in this movie is... Honestly, he looks like he's having a great time. But basically, it is a movie made by the Broken Lizard. Broken Lizard is a troupe that I'd never heard of until I saw the movie Super Troopers. I've only seen this movie once, easily about 15 years ago, when I was living in Singapore, after I went to boarding school. Did I mention that? But no, yeah, it's a great comedy. It certainly starts with basically its target audience. If you are drinking and or smoking weed or both at the same time, then this is definitely the movie for you.
Still holds up, man. Just going through it, I remembered, like, it was like riding a bicycle. I remembered every single line of dialogue and how that line of dialogue was delivered. So much so that it was probably annoying the shit out of you.
Oh, not at all. I was watching it in stereo. And you know what's interesting is, like, very often, like, if we get the opportunity here at the podcast, we will like to get on a FaceTime call, get on a Zoom call, watch movies at the same time, and talk shit. But to be honest, during Super Troopers, we didn't say a word. Because there's so many jokes happening and so much comedy happening on screen that we'll just let the movie happen.
And also we needed such a breath of fresh air from the other two films that we needed like a bit of a palate cleanse, to be honest. Well, and I think it delivered.
I did need a palate cleanse because I had just watched my movie.
A movie you forgot you picked until just now.
Yeah, I picked it because I'd never seen it. But I did watch Dead Poets Society today, and I didn't need a palate cleanser from Dead Poets Society. I can't wait to get into Ryan being dead on the inside regarding that movie. But, wow. I'm already just choking on the fact that I picked this next movie. My choice is a big hole in my filmography of a director that's been on this show before. In fact, one of our very first episodes, Arizona, we had Used Cars, directed by Robert Zemeckis. Now, Robert Zemeckis, he's had some bangers. He also has then got into the animated world and completely lost his ability to direct movies. But this was a 2000 movie starring Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, and Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer. Considering we're putting these three together, it's a $100 million movie that made $300 million. I'm like, you know what? This movie should be good. And like Ryan said, I may have lost my joy for movies and my will to live in general.
It is a perplexing film that just does not add up
I
at
could
all.
write a dissertation about how fucking bad that movie is. Will, give me your hot take. I've been gagging for it.
He loved it.
My favorite movie. It's amazing.
If
there's one thing I love, it's a lady putzing around the house for 2 hours looking scared at stuff. Fantastic filmmaking. If you've ever wanted to see Michelle Pfeiffer walking down a hallway and taking her sweet ass time for 45 minutes before anything happens, we've got a movie for you. I'm still shook that this is $100 million. I've not recovered.
It was all the bathtubs that they built.
Yeah.
Right. It was a $90 million bathtub that they had to get.
Yeah, and then like it's almost like it seemed like Robert Zemeckis was asleep at the wheel, and then him and his cinematographer who worked with him on Contact and worked with him a number of his movies, they suddenly said, "Hey man, what if the ground was see-through?" And they just did some weird. They moved the cameras and cool, whatever. And you know what? I'm gonna save it for last because I don't want to blow my load in the first 3 hours of this podcast.
Well, we're not watching The Incubus.
Yeah.
So hold on.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna start there. But I mean, guys, no joke. I ranted to my wife that she was like, "Ollie, you're gonna give yourself a heart attack. Maybe keep your voice down. People are trying to sleep." And I'm just, what is? It's like someone was flipping channels every 8 minutes to rip off another movie. It's the Skeleton Key. Oh, it's bloody, it's The Conjuring. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. It's just, and nothing. The whole 45 minutes at the beginning is completely irrelevant.
Now,
who cares about
Ollie, is this the first movie on the podcast that caused you to cry for the wrong reasons?
This made me, dude, swear to God, I almost Dead Poet Society'd myself by the end of it.
Oh, boy.
Like,
wow. By that, you mean you got fired and were going to be sent to like a different school. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah, that's definitely.
Smoked weed in a cave? What?
Right.
So, I'll tell you what, no, that's what we're going to do. Let's start with Dead Poet Society. All right, let's sound like an actual movie podcast and talk about a Peter Weir movie that's definitely Oscar bait and is just about acting and about things and poetry and finding yourself. So, Will, I know you are like me. Ryan, had you ever seen this movie before?
No, I hadn't. And to be honest, had I seen this movie back then, I would have a much different appreciation for it. But watching it now, this is one of those where, I've seen all of the parodies and pastiches of it, so it kind of took me out of it a little bit.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting because it is a movie that is so in the zeitgeist now. And it has been Simpsoned and Family Guide. It's been communityed. It's been pastiched and joked, and
you can't stand on a desk without referencing this movie.
Exactly. Right. Okay.
It ruined standing on desks for me. It's my favorite thing.
So what did you think this movie was? Do you have any kind of like clue as to where or what it was?
Well, what I thought it was and what I was hoping it was going to be, very different.
Ooh, what did you hope it was going to be?
I was hoping it was going to be some kind of post-apocalyptic, futuristic, like zombie thing where dead poets come back and these young kids have to form a team and then just blow their fucking brains out. Unfortunately, that technically does happen, but not in the same context. So the one glimmer was, now that you said it, is picturing this as a Clarence Boddicker prequel.
Yeah.
So, swings and roundabouts.
I just think you've obviously been watching the Fallout show. I think you go into the post-apocalyptic mindset.
Yeah.
But no, so what it actually does, it's set in 1959 at a fictional elite boarding school. By the way, I went to boarding school. Did I ever mention that? But it's set in Vermont.
Oh, what?
Crazy.
But it is, it just tells the story essentially of a teacher that walks into an all-male prep school and teaches these boys how to think differently through the medium of ignoring textbooks, encouraging them to go and hang out in caves, and it does lead to the death of a child, which again, Ryan, I figured you'd be into. I understand.
Like I said, it's only in the opening scenes that I appreciate that.
Right, and it was more of an older child in this.
Yeah, that's not. That's no fun. That's no fun.
So
you're like a Louisiana lawmaker where you're like 16 to 17-year-olds, you're an adult.
Yeah. Get a job, you pussy.
Yeah.
No lunch breaks for you. So Will, tell me a little bit about how when you first saw this movie.
Well, to kind of, bring it back to like, we were talking about like it's, a classic. It's this is a little bit more kind of like a film like appreciation type movie. Can we talk about the knockers on that Playboy model? Like those were huge.
Yeah.
It was distracting.
I'm glad you brought that up because it was the one glimmer when watching this film. I was like, hang on.
Yeah.
Here we go. More of this.
Yeah. On this latest rewatch, I was like, oh, all right. Well,
I did not remember the boobs, and they were.
I mean, comically big for that.
They were.
That was my thought. Yeah.
I know. And then for the 50s as well. I mean,
he had to
I've done a lot of research into 50s pornography. And
the
that
centerfold
is just
the centerfold had to come down and then out from the side.
Yeah.
It was a pop-up. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
What movie are we talking about?
The only bit of research I did on this movie for this episode.
But like it essentially it's such no it is it's totally, I mean, it got nominated for Best Picture, it got nominated for Best Director, it won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. It was, and like when I was a younger man as a teenager and this came around, it was quite a popular movie. Like you'd watch it and it was like, okay, no, I dug it.
Look, it was a big deal at its for that time, for sure.
I know, I do. And I think, I don't know, I mean, jokes aside, that it's much like the movie, was it Sean Astin movie, Toy Soldiers. Amazing.
Another podcast favorite.
Trying to figure out how to get that on the podcast. But it's like, it's another, trust me, boarding school kids, we love watching more movies about boarding school. Oh. And this is one of those ones that we're like, oh yeah, I remember being in the sort of like the communal TV room and watching this on VHS at being like 15. Now,
is boarding school and prep school, are those the same kind of thing?
Yes,
prep schools here in the States.
Because I went to a prep school and then I went to my boarding school. But yes, but preparatory school is very much kind of like it seems to be in this movie. It's a school of 50 children. 50! I mean, that's absolutely bonkers to me.
What?
But it's just like, it's preparing you for life and society kind of thing. So, I mean, I grew up in England, invade places, drink tea.
Sure.
Actually, that's my character. I think I should do that. Would rival Will.
Rival Rooster.
Yeah.
We didn't go to school. We went to a hut out back. It was an old man. Just threw chicken bones at us. Don't go farm.
I never get all that tired of that. That's so good. But like, so Ryan. Granted, there were no zombies or post-apocalyptic nightmares,
right?
But at the same time, because you were on the thread, kind of going, God, I'm bored, and I was watching it today.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's Peter Weir, and the thing is that Peter Weir he's a very slow, very deliberate director. When you look at Witness, when we talked about Witness and how it's sort of, he's very good at bringing you into a situation and like not over explaining it, but making you feel it in the way that Peter Weir made you feel like you were in Amish country or in Witness or on a boat, back in the day in Master and Commander. Yeah. I definitely felt like he brought you into that feeling of being in this boarding school.
100%. And he's a very deliberate director and he does such a good job. Like, comparing this to say like a Master and Commander, he did such a great job of, you really feel the camaraderie and like the social interactions between all of the characters. And I really did appreciate that. But yeah, I was bored out of my fucking mind. But like, that's the thing is, it's a movie that I'd never seen, but I felt like I'd seen it before. Like all the beats, it just felt so familiar to me, even though I had never seen it.
It's interesting because I would sort of argue that you're kind of doing the same thing that I did when I was comparing Little Giants and Mighty Ducks.
True.
And Will kept going, yeah, but the Mighty Ducks came first, bro.
I understand.
You know what I mean? And so it's that, because I definitely feel like Dead Poets Society not created, but sort of hit on a genre that became so defining that everyone else has They're always like, oh, it's like a Dead Poet Society.
We brought up like School of Rock on the text thread. I was like, oh, it's just kind of like that.
Right.
But Jack Black is, you know, basically being this rock legend, fucking Robin Williams type character.
Right.
You have all of the individual students, but I don't know.
But you got Robin Williams.
He's great. He's great. I like the bit in the middle of the film when he just like starts doing stand up for the students, and it just cuts to them like laughing. I'm like, is he just doing bits now?
Yeah. Did anyone else like Will? I guess you and I, we often do like. I was sitting there going, they got all those shots of the kids by just getting him just riffing.
That's absolutely
Just do you. I'm gonna get shots of the kids laughing.
But it's great. Anytime, like he shot this film in like chronological order, so you can in order to really establish like the boys bonding over the course of this film, which I thought was really good. He made them all like stay together, so that it just all felt so real. They all were like well-rounded characters, even though a lot of them looked almost identical. Yeah, they all had their own individual personalities, which is cool.
Yeah, that was the biggest. It was a little bit like Dunkirk, where you're watching that movie. I was like, wow, I can't believe they digitally inserted the same guy 900 times. Like, it's quite incredible.
Yeah.
This did, other than like the two leads and the one guy from who I know was later on Sports Night, it was like really hard to tell who anybody was. Like,
yeah, it was Josh Charles. Is he not in that show everyone says I should watch on HBO with Brian Cox? Succession. Is he not in that? But yeah, Gail Hansen and Josh Charles, those two guys. I'm like, are they twins?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Right.
Yeah, it's the jazz guy and the guy that tries to pick up Chris, the cute girl. Those two guys. Right. I'm like going.
I know the guy that tries to pick up the cute girl from Wet Hot American Summer 10 years later as like the super preppy kid from across the lake, playing the exact same character basically.
And he's on Sports Night. That's the guy.
Yeah.
I know
he's in a ton of stuff, but like, and he looks almost exactly the same. It's wild. He's great. But I thought Ethan Hawke would have for some reason have like a much bigger role, like thinking he would be the lead in this film, but not really, you know.
No. It's interesting. I had and even having seen the movie and also remembering kind of how the movie ends, I remembered Ethan Hawke being very much like the passenger. Like, I felt like a passenger in his story, and then I watched it and I go, huh, he's kind of like an also ran until the very end.
Yeah,
you know, he's just he's Mr. Captain, my captain, but it's very much the other boy's story, Robert Sean O'Neill's story. You know, so it's Clarence Bodica's son, who he's going to succeed. He's going to go to Harvard. He's going to be a doctor. He discovers acting and then does the most dramatic bit of overreaction I think anyone's.
Yeah, I thought that was, I mean, I guess me in the 50s.
Well, yes and no. I mean,
so that was extreme. I
remember it being shocking and like, whoa, when I was a teenager, we're like, oh yeah, man, dads. And then I'm watching it, you know, like as a dad with kids this age. And I'm like, it's like, look, you acted once. No son of mine's going to be an actor. You're going to be a doctor and I'm going to pay for all of it. Fuck you, Dad.
Yeah. It was almost like the 50s reaction if the dad found out his son was gay.
Yes.
And that was like so shocking for that time period. That kind of makes sense. Maybe it was. I don't know. He was in drama.
No son of mine will be an actor.
Yeah. You want to be what? A robot cop? Not in my house. But I don't know. I mean, Clarence Boddicker. What's his name?
Kurtwood Smith.
So basically playing Red from that 70s show forever.
Well, you're muted, buddy. I can see you trying to say.
Yeah. Sorry, there's sirens. Everybody in the world's doing their lawn right now.
Yeah, Will lives, if you don't know, he lives in Demolition Man. He lives in that LA in the first 5 minutes of Demolition Man is exactly where.
But unlike in Demolition Man, he only needs one seashell.
That's right. I upgraded. Upgraded. Paid for that extra.
Yeah, new Tesla brand seashell.
When I'm driving my Tesla with my Apple Pro Vision on, you know, as I'm driving.
Just scooping.
Future
just scooping.
Be well.
Be well.
Yeah. Be well. No, I actually.
What was your question?
Movie.
Hang on a second. I've got a theory about Demolition Man. Is the reason nobody shakes hands is because they've been so busy scooping poop with their seashells that no one's got clean hands, and so no one shakes hands anymore?
Yeah, that place is covered head to toe.
That
Shit.
makes sense. Yeah, what if that is a thing where it's like they're laughing like he doesn't know how to use the free seashells, but secretly none of them do, and nobody wants to admit it. It's one of those like social politeness things. They're just this guy doesn't know. Meanwhile, they're going home Googling.
And everybody's walking around with diaper rash at all times. Anyway, we're talking about Demolition Man. Welcome to Demolition Man, the podcast about Demolition Man. What were we talking about? Which one were we talking about? Dead Poets Society. That's right.
Yes. Before I forget, I did want to say it had been a while since I saw this movie. Probably about 10 years or so. But in rewatching it, I actually did in my mind made it be like I thought that character, the guy who was like an actor, Neil. I can't even remember these kids' names. I can't keep it straight.
White kid number one.
Yeah, he. I actually did remember, like, oh, wasn't there like hinting that he was also gay?
I thought that too.
And then watching the movie, I'm like, oh, they're not hinting at that at all. That's just something
just wishful thinking.
Just wishful, just be like,
no, dude. I think that's.
I wish he was my doctor.
Yeah, I think that's more reflective, like just late '90s thinking of this. Oh, this boy wants to be an actor. I'm like, oh, he's.
They could have like they didn't really like
actor. He's totally gay.
They didn't like lean into it. There weren't like many cues that would lead you to believe that. Like, besides that, he just now you watch it, you're like, oh, he just wants to.
Yeah, but it's so funny that you say that, Will, because the movie started and go, oh, that's right. This is the sort of like gay curious kid. No, he doesn't. He just wants to act. I was like, wow. What a reflection on the way we were brought up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for real.
That's what happens when you open Twitter once.
That's why I've got that internet brain rot.
But like, see, I really... I did enjoy this movie. So I was sitting there and I was trying to watch it like Ryan, So what am I going to hate about this movie? But just angry. I just think it was beautifully shot. It's like
it's incredible.
It feels real. Like it's shot in a school for real. Like Ryan said, shot chronologically, which kind of gives this sort of like you see as the kids grow together. You definitely feel that. That's something I didn't know until you mentioned it. And it's just it's got those moments, and it's a word.
It's so grounded.
The term they use now is Oscar bait.
Yeah,
you can feel it kind of an Oscar bait movie. But I think another part of it that I remember being about it was Robin Williams. Not being Mork, not being Robin Williams about things. He's like certainly adjacent, but it's like. It's that proto performance that leads us to his Good Will Hunting, which for me, I think is one of my favorite.
You don't get that super manic side. He's not like in Jumanji or Wild Hog or what's Old Dads or what's the RV or something, whatever it is.
Hog Dads. Yeah, Hog Dads he was great in.
Dripping Wet Hog Dads.
So the AI created that movie franchise.
That's it.
But it's a more subdued Robin Williams. And the thing about it is that side of Robin Williams I've always found quite endearing, because when he does say something in his way, in his softer way, you listen. I mean, that's why I think his casting as this role is so bang on. Yeah. It's so bang on. Like, and then you want that guy to be your teacher.
Did you look up to see who was supposed to be in that role?
Betty White.
Liam Neeson.
Oh, that's right. I did read that. Liam Neeson.
I looked that up after because I watched this I had my phone on because I think you were watching Witness you were watching Witness. I was watching Dead Poets Society, and I had to turn my phone off because now you were texting nonsensical bullshit about what lies beneath,
right?
Which was just reiterating all of the same things we were saying. Yeah, so I had to turn my phone off just to not be disturbed while watching this, because I really did want to sit and be non-subjective and just actually absorb this film and try to enjoy it. But I was just sleepy times.
You know, I did the same thing. I put my, it's one of those movies that I'm like, no, this is a very much pay attention to it, watch it. There's some sort of like nuance to it.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking shit about it. Maybe I just wasn't in the right frame of mind or the right
You can
mood.
talk
But
shit about
it's
it.
no, it is an incredible movie, and I think people should watch it. But I think I
It
just
is the
had
whitest movie ever made.
It is the whitest film ever. But hey, it
Like,
was the 50s. There were no black people in the 50s.
It's a prep school in Vermont in the 50s, but it's just what I mean is like it's so quickly that they find out about Dead Poets Society being a thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, guys, we're doing this.
So what? We're just some kind of Dead Poet Society?
We we're going to sit in this cave and we're going to
quick, like immediately.
Just it's the same night.
Yeah.
From zero to Dead Poet Society. Like, guys, this is it. We figured out there's nothing else to do in the 50s apart from duck and cover, right? We're terrified about like the Red Menace. We are going to read poetry in a cave, and then someone's going to show us a picture of some really big boobs.
Yep.
Yeah. And they're off to the races.
It's so funny we were talking about, like, you think about, because you mentioned Toy Soldiers, where that film also has that one character who is gay in that, and that becomes like a contentious thing in the film. And I kept wondering, I'm like, you know what this movie needed is terrorists storming the school, but they have to fight them with poetry.
Ooh.
Right?
Thing is, I could have taken
our words are our weapons. Blah.
Now I will defeat you with iambic pentameter.
Arose by any other name can still kick your ass. There we go. Trailer.
Not the bee.
Yes.
The Last Action Hero reference. Yeah.
Better movies.
Yeah.
Both of them. But it's not so much. It's so great. It's this movie though. I'm not surprised, Ryan, that you saw it the way that you saw it. But like, so Will, like, I know we touched on it a little bit before, but like for me, it became kind of like a happy place thing, and then it became kind of like a nostalgia watch for me. And and then I was just like, I was just appreciating for what it is. So like, Will, I'm just a little bit more about like your take on this movie.
Yeah, in terms of like Robin Williams films, I wouldn't put it in my like upper tier, but it's a very good comfort watch for me. I really do enjoy it. I think it's very well written, and I'm a sucker, having worked at like a school for almost like a decade. I'm very partial to good teacher movies. Like I love it, especially when it's like, it feels like how a teacher really would interact with their students, and this is very much like, feels like a teacher almost wrote the movie. It gets the interaction and the connection correct in a way I really like. It's funny because as I was watching it this time around, I was comparing it to a movie about a very bad teacher, that movie Tar, that I think came out like last year, and just because that's a character that infuriates me with the way she talks to her Juilliard students and stuff.
Or Whiplash, like, is another one.
Whiplash is another good one. And so this is a polar opposite. This is like exactly the kind of teacher you want to have.
To a lesser extent, Bad Teacher, starring Cameron Diaz.
That's the one you really want to have? Yes. The one I wanted. But yeah, no, I just I really, Robin Williams, this is him being his like most reserved and most soft. And until we get to Good Will Hunting, but I just really appreciate that performance. I really like it, but at the same time, it's not Fast and the Furious. It is also, it's a very slow kind of molasses.
It's the slow and pedantic.
Yeah. But so if you're in the mood for that, I think it's great for that. If you're not in the mood for that, I could totally see this movie. I kind
of expected it to be like a slower, methodical film, but at the pace it was going, I just had a preconceived notion. I was expecting more things out of it, but everything that was there was incredible.
That's a good point, actually, Ryan, is that there very little happens in the movie.
Yeah.
If you actually boil it down, it's that the boys start reading poetry. One of the boys wants to be an actor. The other boy has the guts to seize the day and talk to a girl. Another one has the guts to seize the day and just be outrageous, and then the kid kills himself at the end.
Yeah.
So there's
very much like Little Giants.
but it's like, but it does a lot with a little.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing as like when you come to Master and Commander, when you talk about it, like fundamentally, what's the plot? They see a boat again, they set the trap for the boat at the end. It's like, but what it is the little character moments. And there's little bits of growth, and I think that's what Peter Weir is very good at.
And another gay character kills himself? Is he,
he's not gay, just
on the guy on the boat. He's a bit of a
he's an actor, yeah.
Yeah, he's British. That's what you're getting mixed up in. But also, like, touching quickly, Will, you were talking about how it felt very real as a teacher. I was interested if you were going to say something about that. But the original script was written by Tom Schulman, but based on his experiences at Montgomery Bell Academy in Tennessee, particularly with reference to his inspirational teacher, Samuel Pickering.
There you go.
So it's like this,
makes sense.
and that's the thing is, I mean, I think everybody does. Everyone remembers their favorite, or their teacher. That for me, it's Nigel Kosh. Mr. Kosh, you got me an A in math a year early, and we used to watch Simpsons on Saturdays instead of doing maths. And he was the best teacher. He was fantastic. And what I loved about him is that when you were in class, and I was thinking about it watching the movie today, you were always Mr. Pettigrew. Mr. Pettigrew, shut up. That's what he usually say to me. But if you were outside of class, you were Ollie. You know what I mean? And he had this delineation, and he was fun, but he was like engaging at the same time. And I think kind of like what Will said is that I do like those movies too. And I think Dead Poets Society is very much one of the, I think why it got pastiche so much is you see other teachers going, well, now you're just trying to be Robin Williams for Dead Poets Society. See you today. Carpe that DM.
Yeah.
But still, that being said, I think this is a good movie. And it's like I find one of the weirdest things I read about this movie is that Ethan Hawke, apparently Robin Williams was cracking jokes all the time. I'm like, it's Robin Williams. What do you expect? But apparently Ethan Hawke was annoyed by this. I'm like, it's Robin Williams giving you free jokes. Shut up and just listen to the guy, for God's sake. It's a master being a master,
Just nerdy Ethan Hawke sitting there like, I'm trying to work and be an actor.
You want to get Jumanji? That's how you get Jumanji.
Ethan Hawke always has like funny recollections of things that have happened. This is to go off topic real quick. There's a story he wrote years ago. I think he wrote it for Variety or something. I forget what it was, but it was an op-ed talking about who's the country singer that just passed away. He had the bar, Toby Keith. Talking about a story about Toby Keith and Chris Christopherson like really getting into it behind the scenes at like Willie Nelson's birthday. And Chris Christopherson rules, by the way. That guy's awesome. But he's describing this like fight that they're having, and while he's describing it, he's like, everybody was shocked backstage. Stevie Wonder, he didn't even talk or move. And but he moved on, and I was like, what? Why would you point? What's Stevie Wonder gonna do? he's sitting there. He doesn't even realize who's talking. He's just hearing two good old boys yelling at each other. Just like Stevie, do something. All right, here I go. Yeah.
For those that don't know, Chris Christopherson, he is the co-lead of Blade.
Yes. Real life Rooster Cogburn.
Yes, just as awesome.
Something that I only just read, so I was digging into a little bit of the interesting facts, and I'm so glad it was there because my thought was in this moment. So there's a great scene, a massively important scene after Neil has died, where Ethan Hawke is, they're outside in the snow, and I'm going, wow, what production value. It's incredible. It's snowing, it looks amazing, and I'm sitting there going, man, there's no way they could have planned that. I guess, whatever. And it turns out that the whole thing was supposed to be shot inside. It started snowing, and they're like, we've got to do it. We've got to do it outside. And Ethan Hawke did it in one take. And I'm like,
crazy. Yeah.
Because I'm watching that going, whoa.
I thought you were going to say
snow. What's going on here? And they just go, guys, we've got free production value outside. Screw what we're going to do. Everybody get outside. We're doing it out there. And that was one of the best scenes in the whole movie. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah.
You can't. That's what I always think is that because there's two types of filmmaker. They're both good. Don't get me wrong, but there's like in a way there's sort of Zack Snyder-y. He sits and he draws like every sort of frame that he wants to shoot, how he wants to shoot it, and then there's other directors that turn up going, well, I know what we need to shoot. Let's, what if we put the camera there? You know, and like in those moments, and I think Spielberg, I like him because he's both. He's very good at like going, this is what we're going to get. But then he gets into a small location. He goes, we could move the camera around. And like, I feel like that, like with Peter Weir, that we talked about it with Witness, that he's half a step away from documentarian, you know, when he's making his movie. And I feel like this one felt like a very real school story to me with, like I said, a gloriously massive overreaction by one of the kids.
Yeah.
Because
it's definitely,
it's still shocking, but it's shocking because you're like, what?
But as a teenage boy, I remember us all being like, oh, like I was saying earlier. And as a dad now, I'm just going, maybe just fucking have a conversation with your dad.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, Robin Williams, his character even says it in the movie, like, okay, well, if this time it doesn't work out, you'll be graduated out of here in a couple of years and you can do whatever you want. Like, even if his dad had sent him off to like military school, by the time he's 18, he didn't have to. He could just be like, nah, sorry, old man.
I thought that whole scene was going to go differently. Like his dad shows up to the play and sees his son and changes his mind, like after seeing his performance, and that's what brings them together. And boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
Complete.
Whoa!
I forgot the dad turning up, and then he gets
an altercation outside.
He gets the rapturous applause, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's amazing," and the dad's like, "No son of mine." It's just, you know, and
bizarre, but I get the plot device for it, but it just felt
like a good antagonist.
Watching it in this day and age, it feels so out of pocket. You know, like it just doesn't. It seems just so strange.
Yeah, it's the "Don't you dare go against what I said." You know, it's like the biggest line I think of Kurtwood Smith's, you know, character at least is,
"Can you fly, Bobby?" Sorry.
Shit, it's that. No, it's like, "You made me a liar."
Yeah.
You know, when he said, "No, my son's not in a play," and he's like, he gets angry. He's like, "You made a liar of me."
Even in the very beginning, when he they're all kind of getting settled at school, and all the boys are together in the room, and he comes in to have a conversation with his son, and he's like, "You're doing too much. You got to drop the yearbook thing or whatever it is."
Yeah, the annual.
And then they have like this conversation back and forth, and he excuses all the other boys and comes back out, and he's like, "Don't you ever do that? Like, disagree with me in front of anyone." I'm like, just he's really kind of a bit of a hard on, you know?
Yeah, considering he's a bit of a prick, the fact that he walked into a room that one of the boys was just smoking in and the window wasn't open, and he didn't notice that one of the boys was smoking.
Yeah, but that's okay. As long as you're not in a play while you're doing it. That's a whole other thing.
No actor for me.
Yeah.
Maybe his dad was killed by an actor, and that's why he doesn't like acting.
His dad was killed by a RoboCop?
Oh,
hang on.
A robo actor.
Sent from the future? What?
So I was also seeing that this is kind of weird. Like, it seems almost out of character, almost, but that Robin Williams was cast after they considered not only Liam Neeson but Dustin Hoffman, Mel Gibson, Tom Hanks, Mickey Rourke. That would have been weird.
Rourke.
That's just
my
bad.
God.
He didn't turn up for the first day of shooting with the director at the time, Canu of some kind. And so the studio burned the sets down and replaced the director with Peter Weir to get Robin Williams. I'm like, how much cachet did Robin Williams have to not turn up on day one of a movie to the point the studio burns the sets and recasts the director? I want to know more about that. That is something that I'm like, I've never heard of anything along those lines of a actor having that much like, no, not only am I not turning up, burn the fucking sets. It's like,
that's what they did for What Lies Beneath. Every scene change, they just burn the previous set down.
Now we get it. That's where the 100 million.
100 million. Oh, nice try, Ryan. If you think I'm segueing into What Lies Beneath, you're wrong, buddy. No, we're segueing.
No, that's not what I'm trying to do. We'll get there.
We will. But what I'm saying,
10 hours.
We've been doing this now. It's something we now do on the podcast. Is like, you know, we editorialize sometimes, but no, we're talking about whether or not to watch this movie. I would say watch this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
for sure.
If you have, the thing is though, now Ryan, you brought up something which is the being in the right frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you're right. Now, the thing is, because I'm always in the frame of mind to watch Master and Commander, I'm never not in the mood to watch that movie. But I can see what you mean, that if you're going to watch Dead Poets Society, it is probably watch it alone, probably later at night, put your phone down, sit down, just watch it kind of movie. It's not Battleship, you know? It's not
Unfortunately. Fortunately.
Yeah, and you're right, and that's not a slight against this movie.
No,
I think I was no, and I think, any movie, I think you should proactively try and be in the right frame of mind to properly enjoy it. But this one,
hang on, I will say that we've all had movies sit on our queue that we've not watched. Because we're like, I need to be in the right frame of mind. And then this podcast makes us watch it and we go,
yeah, everyone's like, have you seen Zone of Interest? I'm like, no, because I don't want to be fucking sad, man. Like,
right. Yeah.
There's just certain things. But if you're like, hey, we're going to watch Predator, I'm like, okay. Like, I don't need to be in any frame of mind for that one. But for this movie in particular,
are we going to watch Predator?
Hang on.
It takes place.
Because I will end this podcast right now.
Yeah.
Takes place in the state of aggression. There we go. State of aggression. Let's do it.
Done. Sorry, Brian. You've been trying to make a point.
I was like, no. Technically, that movie has two governors in it.
It does.
In California, so it counts for California. Is that right?
Yeah, that works. I'm with it.
Yep. There we go.
That's all I need. I'm done.
Wait, which state was the Predator a governor of? There, I'm confused.
Obviously,
wherever P. Diddy lived.
Yeah. California.
Also California. Fine.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that was wow.
That was topical.
Good. Well done.
No, sorry. Just to get back to my point. I think yes, you should be in the right frame of mind for this movie. But just know, there's like, if you haven't seen it, it's not like this twisty, turny, kind of a super emotional, constantly emotional thrill ride. It's a very consistent story throughout. I think
it's very much just a teacher teaching a bunch of people who've been taught to follow the rules to think for themselves.
Yeah,
that is fundamental.
It's a bunch of students that stand up to conformity,
and then some of them don't. All right, let's move on from the completely highbrow, Oscar baity, stick a lump of coal up its ass in 2 weeks, you'd have a diamond kind of movie, and move on to, hey, are you high?
How? That's basically the same movie.
Let's talk Super Troopers. Let's jump into Super Troopers, a movie I'd only seen once, like I said, probably about 13, 14 years ago. I remember Ryan was like, we logged on to FaceTime to watch the movie, and I'm like, does someone fuck a bear? And he's like, yes. And I go, okay, cool. This is
technically no, but
yeah, don't get your hopes up too high, people. That's what you were looking for.
And it's not that kind of bear. Okay, it's like this is an entirely different movie we're describing. So Ryan saw this in theaters and knew it almost word for word. Will, what's your relationship with this movie?
I've only seen it a couple times. I don't remember if I saw it in theaters, but if not, then I saw it pretty quick after, like when it first came out on video. Oh man,
I saw the Super Troopers character, like Jay Chandrasekhar's character, as a cop first in the Dukes of Hazzard movie.
Oh right, he directed that. He directed that movie.
He also directed. Yes,
he directs a lot of like TV and stuff now too.
It stars a couple of the Broken Lizard guys actually as well. And honestly, I kind of like that movie. It's actually quite fun.
I don't remember it, but. That's Johnny Knoxville and
Sean William Scott.
And what was the singer? My God.
Jessica Simpson.
Andrea Bocelli.
Jessica Simpson. Liza Minnelli.
But yeah, it's just so Super Troopers, if you haven't seen it, is the definition of a stoner comedy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like its opening scene, which I will not lie, is
still great.
It's still great. Excellent opening scene. Never has a movie so quickly established itself for what it is going to do, and who it is for. I mean, apart from the Goonies, which I've talked about having one of the all-time greatest introductions of characters and everything, setting up an entire movie, this one is so bang on. And what I loved is I was reading about is that Jay Chansekar and the guys like took themselves a sort of a big drive, and they were like constantly getting pulled over by the police, and they were stoned out of their minds half the time, and they were like, man, what if the cops knew and messed with us? What would that movie be? And they made that movie, which which is very funny.
I love this.
Nothing else needed. Perfect concept, perfect execution.
I think I was the perfect age to see this movie in the theater when it came out. I was probably stoned out of my mind back then. And I think this movie, it's so funny. Again, I said I was worried that watching it now for this, I would be jaded by it or things wouldn't hold up, but it was so different than those like Judd Apatow kind of comedies. I mean, it is very much at its core a stoner comedy. That's all there is to it. But so much so that I loved all of the Broken Lizard film that followed it, Club Dread and Beer Fest and Slam and Salmon, a movie that nobody has seen.
I haven't seen any of the movies you just named. You told me Beer Fest is good. I've heard about Beer Fest.
Yeah, that's great.
Beer Fest is good. Yeah.
Yeah. But I enjoyed these. I think it was doing something so different, and it's still like the way the lines are delivered are just burned into my head that I still probably use a lot of them today. I still go, oh, when he doesn't say car ramrod, like it was such a joy rewatching this for the podcast. I'm glad I picked it.
This little guy, don't worry about this little guy.
Yeah, that's a lot of hooch. I mean, every line, it's great. Liter of cola, like this movie is still so quotable, like much like an Anchorman or an Austin Powers. Like this movie had a fucking chokehold on me.
A liter of cola. Oh man, you are not wrong. What's the name of Kevin Heffernan?
Kevin Heffernan
as father. Like he is again, like he is in Dukes of Hazzard. He is one of my favorite characters in that movie. Like Mrs. and I, we often quote him, like some of his ridiculousness from that movie. But that guy is a balls out comedy actor, and in this movie, quite literally, like just
a lot of those. For what it's worth, a lot of those guys are now on a show, which I think is unfortunately canceled, but it's called Tacoma FD, which is basically like Super Troopers, but they work at a fire department in a city where it fucking rains every day. So there's just never any fires. And it's still kind of like the little hijinks and things like that. So if you're looking for, that kind of feeling, that could scratch that itch.
I was just reading it. It got a fair few seasons. It's like these guys are funny, and the thing is, they've got great rapport.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It definitely, it's the antithesis of Peter Weir making a bunch of kids do this movie in order so they can grow together. No, this is a bunch of guys who have probably all been in a dorm room together, smoking joints and coming up with bits, and then doing comedy bits, and then doing longer comedy bits, and then making a movie. And I tell you what, it's an interesting thing because the world has changed a lot. I mean, even in like the industry that I was in, working in television, at the time you had to be good at the right time in front of the right person. And I was watching Super Troopers and thinking, oh, this movie was made in 2001. Like, because they got the sequel greenlit by crowdfunding it on the internet.
Many years later.
20 years later, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there and I'm watching Super Troopers and I go, this movie is just a slightly higher budgeted YouTube video. And I don't mean that
or like a SNL digital
criticism.
short, No.
What I mean is
it adds to the charm.
Yeah, it's got that just us making this movie because it's making us laugh. There's no notes. You're not being told to do this, that, or the other. You just made that movie. Make the kid lick the thing and say, oh, the snozberries taste like snozberries,
Yeah.
And that's what I think is like, you're watching this going, oh, man. In the same way, like I reference when I start this podcast, I often reference ePad on Max, which is a YouTube show before YouTube was YouTube. We were just allowed to do whatever we wanted, and we did. And so I guess I was sort of watching this going, oh, man, look at how many new voices we get to hear. And then you're watching Super Troopers going, wow, who were because you really had to want it back then. To make a movie like Super Troopers, you had no choice. You couldn't just make that movie and hope people would see it. You had to grind and get that money and get a film and get people to buy it.
Funny to think that these guys who I can't remember if they had done something before, but having it, I remember it was like a Broken Lizard Broken Lizards, Super Troopers, but then they had to drop the name for some odd reason. I don't remember, but
it's probably because no one knew who the fuck they were.
I don't know if that was it, but you're right. There's no reason this should have ever been in theaters at all. Like, but Will, I know you were saying like you were never like a huge fan of like big budget like studio comedies. Right. So this feels like the antithesis to that, like it feels like an independent film.
This is exactly where I like my comedy. It is like super low budget, but it doesn't look cheap. It doesn't look like somebody filmed it in the backyard, but it doesn't have that studio gloss in it. It doesn't have like, oh, we shoved, this guy's great, but Ken Jeong in here, like for a cameo. It doesn't have that.
Which is fucking Brian Cox.
That's it. That's our only name. Everything else.
And Linda Carter.
Barely a plot.
Yes.
Barely. That's right. Yes.
Linda Carter. Shocked. I exclaimed when I was like, Wonder Woman's in the movie. How?
Allie and I both like Spider-Man pointed to each other. Like, wait, what?
Yeah, totally forgot she was in this. But even then, that's not like, it's not like we brought in Will Arnett. Again, I think Will Arnett's hilarious.
Yeah.
But anytime you like do these big studio comedies, it's like, let's just shove as many famous people in there and make every set look hand-built. And this movie gets barely a plot, which is perfect for a comedy because it just gives you a chance to just do like basically like just a bunch of sketches.
You're right.
And it's great. It's perfect.
But it also it does feel. It's so funny you say that. It does feel like a sketch comedy, like they're just doing bit after bit, which is fine. But it's still paced super well, and it's still a very like coherent. It's a simple plot, but
nothing goes on too long.
Yeah,
nothing's dragged out.
Everything feels authentic. Like you're saying, it feels so authentic because you can just tell that these guys have been friends forever, and they had so much fun doing this without it seemed like there was no studio interference to kind of bog it down.
The characters do have their own little mini arcs. There is an arc to the movie. There is a point. And I want to point out that the third movie we're going to talk about this week has none of these things. There's no arcs. There's no growth. There's no.
Doesn't even have one plot.
No point. Yeah. There's fucking nothing in a massive, massive movie in this little thing. You're right, because I was watching it. Same thing. Is like it does go from bit to bit to bit to bit, but they don't feel like they've glued them together, just going whatever. It's like, all right, let's have this scene. All right, what? Just go, just riff. Let's have some fun. But it's not doing the mistake of Anchorman 2, which is just letting people riff without any script.
Right.
They've got a script. They've got this moments down. They've got little moments in there. So it's like I think that's the best kind of comedy because you can't just have pure riffing and fix it in the edit.
Yeah, it's right. It's right in there with like Clerks, the original Clerks movie, which I'm like, again, a perfect comedy. There's enough of a plot. There's enough story arcs in there for the characters to make it feel like a movie, but gives the characters a lot of time to just do funny things. Mm-hmm. And and they nailed it in this movie.
Yeah.
I was just reading, actually, I found an article, a Forbes article. I was just quickly reading from last year. And it was, so initially they tried to get Bill Murray.
For Brian Cox's character?
Yeah. And then, so that, they only had like $100,000 to offer. And it was like, all right, whatever. Not Bill Murray saying that, but that's more like his agents. Yeah. Brian Cox, through our casting agent, found out that he'd read the script on his own and called up saying he wanted to play the part because in the beginning of his career he always imagined he'd be a young Jerry Lewis and he thought that's where his career was going, but he ended up playing Hannibal Lecter in Michael Mann's Manhunter in '86, and it sort of pushed him into the more like dark side. And so it was more just like Brian Cox going, well, I've always wanted to do something stupid.
I was towards the end of the film where they all get like super drunk. The whole time I'm watching.
Oh my god, yeah.
Brian Cox's character drunk act, which is not easy.
Drunk Brian Cox, man, give that.
But I was like, oh my god, he's just Danny DeVito, Frank Reynolds. Like I could swap those two out interchangeably, and it was like, oh yeah, he's like the drunk old man that's just part of this crew.
It's funny you should mention that because it was just today on Reddit there was this article that kept popping up, and it's I haven't seen it, but has anyone else seen Ridley Scott's Napoleon with Joaquin Phoenix?
Oh no, but I know the article here.
Yeah, so it's just Brian Cox is quoted as going, Oh, it was fucking awful. I could have acted the shit out of that character. I was just like, Brian Cox, he has literally zero fucks to give about anything at any point.
To be clear, you have not seen Succession.
No, I have not. Will, have you seen it?
I've seen the first episode and I've seen the last episode.
What?
I know.
That's how Will watches all his shows, just the first and last.
I think Ryan's about to have an aneurysm.
It's not a show for everyone, but I think it is an incredible show, and it's created by it was Jesse Armstrong, I think, who created my all-time favorite show, Peep Show, which I love.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Oh shit,
yeah, that's right.
I had no idea.
That's right.
I do want to watch it.
Even British people can direct things.
Yeah, wow, you're kidding. But yeah, no,
boarding school or not.
Wait, he went to state school? Then I'm not watching. No, Succession is it's a show that's sat in my queue since I don't know, the pandemic or whatever, since it came out. It's a
lot to process, but it's a really incredible show.
You know, as everyone talks about it, and it's kind of like it's the same reason I haven't watched Breaking Bad. But I know with Succession is once you start it, you know you're going to finish it, is what I hear. It's like it's going to be the thing you watch until you're done.
Oh, definitely.
And
it didn't hook me until we're still talking about it. It didn't hook me. I think you have to watch like the first 3 episodes and then you're in. Like it's just because there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of things going on to kind of immerse yourself in that world.
Was it you that described it as kind of like Game of Thrones, just without all the
no, it's more like Arrested Development. If anything, really, it's like a dysfunctional family that's vying for power.
I think was it Patrick Willems who said it's basically like Royal Tenenbaums, like
pretty much,
kind of like a seriouser version of that.
It's great.
So Super Troopers, the general plot of the movie, there you go. If you haven't seen it, is essentially a bunch of Vermont state troopers up by the Canadian border that don't really have much to do, like to get into all kinds of hijinks. They like to drink maple syrup. And then it comes down to this impossible imaginary world that Will pointed out is where police can be defunded.
But the funniest part of the movie. Could you imagine?
Where the city police, their rivals of the city police, are looking to try and sort of like get them replaced. There's a bit of a twist at the end that they're the bad guys, blah, blah, blah. Who matters? It's just a bunch of hijinks that does include... For me, I remember laughing so hard the first time, and I confess I laughed just as hard the second time, but when he is pretending to have relations with a bear is very good acting. I'm just going to say, great,
with the audio tape acting. It's just, it's still, again,
and the sound effects of the bear with the, I lost
the two cops with the megaphone, like they doesn't know what to call him. It's just bear fucker. That's great.
So good.
There's a shot though that like it's so silly where, oh man, I forget the actor's name, but there's a whole altercation. One of the guy runs over and he punches the bear, and the guy falls over and like looks up at the camera, and you can see his like fake teeth. It's just the goofiest thing. But again, it's just a testament to like how low tech this movie is.
Oh, it's so low budget that at multiple points in the movie. I saw it the first time I saw the movie, and I see it every single time now. When they got the sunglasses on, you see the diffusion sheets, and you see the bounce boards clear as day. It's just no hiding it. The crew is in every frame.
It's just
every time you see the sunglasses.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
The diffuser. Okay, cool.
Do you think when they do like the 4K release for it, it's just someone standing over him going, enhance?
Enhance.
That was James Cameron doing the True Lies.
Yeah. Enhance. Sir, they all look like wax figures now. Perfect.
Just print the damn thing.
Print some more money for me. The budget was like 1.5 to 3 mil.
It's crazy.
Which I like, because I like those lower budget ones. They go, how much money do you spend? I don't know. We honestly we just made the movie. But it did make like $20 million, man. Yeah. So that is
this is probably a huge DVD movie too.
Return.
For sure.
Yeah, it did become a cult classic. It's definitely one of those ones. I mean, come on, it's definitely a late night with the fellas. If you're at college, someone's rolling a joint or they're cracking open the beers, and so, oh, guys, have you seen Super Troopers? Oh, we're watching Super Troopers.
Yeah.
Do you have some mushrooms? Take some mushrooms. You're gonna love this opening scene.
So, and for like 10 years on.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying, Ollie, you haven't seen Beer Fest, correct?
Negative. I have not.
So at the very end of that, Will, you have?
Yeah.
So at the very end of that, at the very end of Beer Fest, there's a stinger at the end where they tease Willie Nelson and the credit rolls and says Pot Fest coming soon. I'm still waiting for that movie.
But
we still got time.
But what movie did Willie Nelson turn up in, directed by Jay Chandrasekhar?
Modern Family episode?
The Dukes of Hazzard. He's Uncle What's His Face in the Dukes of Hazzard. So
all right, whatever.
It happened. They got to work with him.
Yeah.
Close.
No, it doesn't matter.
Close enough. But and kind of like, you know, like I was saying, is that many years later, they crowdfunded and made a sequel.
It's crazy. Have not seen it because I don't think it could ever live up to the original, and I don't want to take away from that magic. You know, like I've been having this fond memory of that film. I'm not at that age anymore. I'm sure it's funny and good, but is Brian Cox in it?
Yes, he is.
Oh shit.
So yeah, so in 2001, so Super Troopers won the Audience Award at South by Southwest. So that's kind of like, so South by Southwest, that happens just down the road from me here in Texas. I've always wanted to go, actually. But yeah, I mean, that kind of like explains that, you know, where did it come from? Is that, you know, it's definitely the little engine that could. And I like that. I like movies like that, where they just sort of throw it out there and it just sort of finds an audience. Unlike, here we go, guys. Unlike the last movie that we had to watch this week, that I chose the $100 million just insult to all movies ever made. Let's try and get through talking about what lies beneath without me swearing.
When Will announced the budget for this film over our text thread, I could hear his ears bleeding. I had to go to the hospital. It's shocking when he said, I could not believe where the budget was in this movie. A movie that would have been better served as a Sutter Kane novel.
Thing is,
yes.
See, okay, so I didn't read your text thread because I wanted to go into this movie blind.
Oh, because you hadn't seen it. Okay, that makes sense.
But I very, very, very quickly was like, what in the mouth of madness bullshit is this? Because I will say it, and internet lives forever. People look me in the eye when I say this. In the Mouth of Madness is 10 times the movie that What Lies Beneath is. I would recommend it every time over this movie that doesn't know what it's trying to be.
This is just Zemeckis like, I want to make a Hitchcock film.
I think, well, you know what?
Right.
What kills
it has those
exactly what he said. He said he's trying to make a Hitchcock. He goes, I tried to think about what Hitchcock would do.
Gus Van Sant was Hold My Beer.
And he goes, I made there was a blonde lady protagonist. I'm like, that's what you think that he does with movies, is he puts a blonde person in it? But I think, Will, you were the one that sort of nailed it. I think the only thing that this movie should be known for is, oh, that's the movie they made while Tom Hanks was losing weight to make the rest of
Castaway, right?
Yep. Yeah. That's the only interesting fact about this movie.
These came out in the same year.
About it. Yeah. I think this movie is, I'm going to say it, this is going to be controversial maybe to some people. This movie is a fleecing scheme. This is a movie where they absolutely got the studio to pay them $100 million. Yeah. They spent a week making it. They put it out and they just ran off with the money. And it happened to become profitable.
You can almost hear, it'd be a funny parody of this, is like the making of this movie, but it's like the people behind it are like the mafia, and they're like, yo, Bobby Zemeckis, let's get some more bathtubs in over here.
You don't get us $100 million.
Flawless Italian-American accent.
Yeah, considering you're from New York. No, it's like the producers, right? It's like, hey, we can make more money making a piece of shit. You know, let's make $100 million piece of shit. Wait, it made $300 million?
Maybe the best Mel Brooks impression I've ever
heard. But one thing,
it's wild.
So there was, like I said, so I flicked through your 122 message text thread, but I did notice a few pictures here or there. One of them being Clark Gregg, Agent Coulson,
That's right.
From the MCU. Very familiar to many, many people when it comes to movies. He wrote this. He wrote the screenplay, and I have to say, Clark, this was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, good for you writing a movie and getting it made, but man, I mean, I don't know if they just destroyed your script or whatever, but I couldn't fathom anything.
Say it's based off of themes hum by Clark Gregg.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
But you know what I mean? I mean, so I said at the beginning, right? And this is kind of like I said, when I ranted to Mrs. until she told me to shut up. But it's like, it genuinely felt like every 10 minutes they were just changing the channel to a movie I've already seen. Yeah. They're just ripping off other things from other movies that have been done better by other people. And much like Ryan said, that Super Troopers works with a bunch of skits that don't feel glued together. They actually work. This one goes, here's 10 minutes and a jump scare with Michelle Pfeiffer. Here's another 10 minutes. Here's the skeleton key. It's just
that is true. We did have
Rear Window, then it's not. It's just bullshit.
But we had, we'll admit, we had fun trying to guess what the twist was going to be.
I think everything we came up with was so much better.
And then once you get to the twist, you're like, oh, that's
what I mean.
Disappointing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, now I will say that I did like Harrison Ford in the last 15 minutes. Okay, fine. Fine.
Yeah, that was a nice turn.
The only positive thing I can say about the movie. But I remember it's a scene that is really well shot, right? As in visually, it looks nice.
Yeah, it had some cool shots. For sure.
And it's the bathtub scene where Michelle Pfeiffer can't move. And I was halfway through that scene when I texted you guys. And I go, I'm feeling nothing. I'm not feeling any tension. I'm not feeling nervous in the slightest way. All the shots are there. All the moments are there. The things have been set up. I just couldn't quite put my finger on why it was shit. So I'd be fascinated if you guys have thoughts. But that's when I knew this movie just fundamentally doesn't work. In this really interesting scene where, I've watched movies. I'm one of those people that when water goes over someone's face, I go, in this one, I was just like, whatever. Is this movie done yet? I couldn't give a shit.
And no, there was 48 more minutes.
So much more movie to go.
God damn.
So I will, as our resident actual writer and filmmaker, in your own right, can you help maybe shine a light on why I couldn't give a shit? Why was that? Because was it the editing? It wasn't the editing. It was shot well. Why was it nothing to it?
If I had to kind of guess like what the actual problem was, for me, I was spending a lot of time early on because I'm familiar with Zemeckis. I know that he's a very, very efficient screenwriter and filmmaker, and his movies are very efficient. They work like clockwork, and there's always a payoff to his setup. And watching like the first half of this movie, I was taking in all the information. Like, okay, he's a geneticist. They have like a serum that paralyzes mice.
Right, the rat thing. Yeah.
There was an car accident of some kind.
Right.
There's a daughter that's not Harrison Ford's daughter. There's a previous man. So I was like taking all this in. And the bizarre twist I pitched, I was like, oh my God, she's a clone. She died in the car accident. And he cloned her. And that's why she doesn't have memories of what's going on.
Oh, I like it.
And everything that was happening next door was her memories of what happened trying to seep through. Because that's what I was thinking, like, that's why you don't see the lady's face. That's why, no.
And bizarre red herring that has absolutely no payoff whatsoever.
Fucking 45-minute red herring with zero payoff that only gets for me a pass with James Remar pretending to strangle his wife.
That was the fun, that was legitimately funny.
I'm trying to kill my wife. Funny, right? I was like, what?
All right, see you later.
Yeah, exactly. We'll never
so funny.
And then it's like, hi, I'm Miranda Otto from The Lord of the Rings. Bye. Just in the movie, out the movie, no point.
That's it.
Whatsoever. That's what I mean, and that's what I kept pausing, kept ranting. I go, there's no point to this.
I was remembering. I think I was remembering why I'd only seen this movie once on cable.
Yeah.
But I feel like I remember the trailer pretty well.
I remember him diving into the water in the trailer. I remember that. I remember her face under the water.
I don't remember Harrison Ford being so fucking shredded in this movie.
Damn it.
My God.
Setting unrealistic body standards for middle-aged
The man
men.
was 52 years old.
Good God.
It's incredible.
His body was amazing. I mean, like I am straight, but even I'd go gay for that.
I'm sorry. I think he was 58 in this, and
No
Michelle
way.
Pfeiffer was 42.
Oh my God.
I think I did the math on that.
The thing is that fucking
matter.
Harrison Ford, he played 42 from the age of 35 to 75. The guy, I mean, even, have you seen the new Indiana Jones movie? The guy is even more shredded in the latest Indiana Jones movie. God damn it, Harrison Ford. You are far too cool, and I love you. He's one of my all-time favorite movie stars. But yes, Harrison Ford's physique in this movie was astounding.
Yeah.
And
just totally bizarre. But why? What was
Will
he filming at the time?
You were so distracted by his t-shirt selections. And we were trying to figure out the budget on the film.
His t-shirt, I want the one that just says East. I was cracking up. I'm like, what is that for?
It's like just his favorite direction.
Yeah,
it might as well have been like the Bluto like sweater from Animal House that just said college. It
might
have just been that.
Okay, right. But that being said, I don't know if I've mentioned it. I went to boarding school. Take a guess at the name of the house I was in. East. So
what lies beneath house?
So it was the name of the house, granted, because it was on the east side of the school. But yes, I'm a member of East. So it can happen.
It's just, if you went to school at an East, please send me a shirt. I want one. It's awesome. I love it.
But this
East Community College.
This movie, yeah, right. I just don't get it. I just don't understand who read the script. I guess everyone's like, all right, guys, and here's the spoiler. You know what? I'm spoiling nothing apart from saving you 2 hours. All right?
Yeah.
The twist happens that apparently Harrison Ford is the bad guy. And it's such an undeserved payoff because there's been no building tension to that moment. There's been no, like, it's not a, it's more like a, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's very deflating. Because I think the point of it was, and it takes so long to get there, but I think it's almost, he's trying too hard to be Hitchcockian without kind of the depth. Yeah. But he's such a skillful director.
Of course he is, but not in this fucking case.
No, that's why. But like, you have all the red herrings. You have Michelle Pfeiffer's, mystic friend. I was like, oh, maybe she's like having an affair with, like, she knows what's going on. Maybe she's having an affair with Harrison. Like all the things we were positing were so much better than what actually happened. It was such a frustrating watch. And it turns out that he was having an affair with a student who killed herself
off camera.
Maybe.
Like all of these things happened with this happened. It just kind of gets explained. Oh, there happens to be a box under the water.
Yeah. You get that exposition dump at the very end, and even still, you're like, oh.
Yeah, and like, so the car accident was unrelated, right? Like that was just, she was also in a car crash. That's not related.
That's a metaphor for the movie.
Now, never mind.
It's the only thing that made sense.
You are so, because for me, again, can anybody? I challenge you. What were Michelle Pfeiffer's character's motivations? Was she evil?
Why won't my door close?
Did she want revenge? Did she not? Was she haunted? Was she not? Does she just want to get her front door to stay? But that's what I mean, is like, because she's doing moments where she's evil, then not evil. Then there are scenes where she's being possessed or not possessed. She actively seeks out the hair, but then seems afraid of it, but can't get rid of it, but wants to burn it, but doesn't. I'm like,
I was still like waiting for like a twisty twist where, because she becomes the student he was having an affair with, then they have this whole thing and it, like, everything kind of smoothed over. I understand. And then I thought the reveal was going to be that they did the switcheroo and, oh no, she's the ghost of the student now. And it's like the end, but no, it's just, the movie goes on for another 6.5 hours.
Everything I kept guessing where it would go was so much more interesting. Because at
one
point I was like,
maybe that's the point.
Yeah, but you think you're going to get an interesting movie.
Yeah. See, that's what it is.
Here's the twist.
It's what lies beneath? Question mark. The answer: fuck all.
Yeah. Nothing. A big old goose egg. I don't know. Like I was picturing at one point there was an old lady who's like reminding her at like their house party at one point, like, oh, you don't have these memories. Let me explain them to you.
Right.
That old lady, I thought for sure. I actually had to like pause and like look it up. I thought for sure this was an actress from a movie called The Screaming Skull, which has a very similar setup of like this couple. This is not his first wife, but they're in this beautiful house. They're starting his life together. Oh, the old wife died or something. I thought that's where we were going. But there's a kooky skull that haunts their house. It's this dead wife skull. It's very goofy. But I thought this lady was that, and I'm like, oh, is this a remake of Screaming Skull? Okay. No, it's not that interesting. There's not one haunted skull in this entire movie.
It's a shame
Waste of time.
There are like glimmers of a good, like it has the bones of a good movie. Like it could have, with just some tweaks, it could have been a very good film, but it just absolutely isn't. It's
like I texted you guys. You've broken me, but it made me miss The Conjuring. The Conjuring was a spooky movie. The Conjuring had things.
It had like a jump scare in it, which caught like, but you could see also in that Zemeckis way, like, ooh, I found this new technology I'm going to use, and it simulates mirrors or water.
I'm going to simulate reflections in water.
Like, that said, there are some really interesting shots in this film.
And I joked about earlier that suddenly, I mean, again, it was jarring because it's not something they've been doing in the movie until suddenly in the last 20 minutes, the ground can be transparent or a table can be transparent. We're looking at things through, and you're kind of like, well, there's no narrative reason for that.
Right.
There's no like a ghost is seeing through the ground, or it's just, wouldn't it be weird if she picked the keys up off a ground we can see through?
The whole like
from underneath, like
the whole supernatural spiritual element is so like tacked on. It just feels out of place. Like all of a sudden she's like, well, here I go witching again, and like gets her Necronomicon and the lock of hair and the Ouija board.
The Witches of Eastwick makes more sense than this movie.
And yet, we talked about this. Somehow, this movie has stuck. Of all the movies, this movie has stuck with me, but in the worst way possible. Like, I can't stop thinking about it.
I can't stop thinking about the fact I made $300 million.
Right.
Who went to see this movie more than once? Who told their friends, "Oh, have you seen this movie? It's legit." No, was this something that people pranked people with?
I do hope someone made like one of those, like someone in Ghana made one of those awesome movie posters.
Well, if there's a Ghana movie poster,
we need that. I think what happened is everybody heard like there's a really hot topless scene, and then everyone went to go see it, and it's Harrison Ford, and so I think that was the bait and switch.
But Harrison Ford's titties be popping much like the boobs.
I would still go. Yeah, if someone told me that, I'd still buy it.
Society, it's like it was pretty. I'm going to take Harrison Ford's boobs. They won that contest. He
definitely much more. The first thing I thought I was when I saw the only thing I remember from this movie is just how shredded he was. Incredible.
Yeah. How shredded he was. James Remar's fake choking. Yeah. That's about it. That's the only thing I liked in this entire movie.
Yeah. God damn it. More James Remar.
Yeah.
If you ever the only redeeming thing about watching that show Dexter was him as Dexter's ghost dad.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Now I'm down to watch Dexter. Thank you very much. I'm like, not that I was gonna.
If you do, stop at season 4.
Yes.
I've heard don't get to the end of that movie, that show, please. It's okay. I kind of like you touched on it. Is that when you said like the supernatural element almost seems tacked on? That's kind of what I mean. Is that it's are you a ghost movie or not? Are you a psychological movie or not? Is this, I've got amnesia or I'm manifesting this stuff? But no, it's all of them and none of them. And
it would have been a better like Verhoeven film. Like,
get Verhoeven to direct it. But it never did. And that, again, I keep saying it. I felt like, you're sitting in a room back in the day with someone's grandpa flicking channels. Driving you crazy. That's what this movie was.
Yeah.
I watched Dead Poet Society beginning to end, right? I watched Super Troopers beginning to end. I watched this movie in 15 parts.
This movie was 2 hours and...
2 hours and a
840 minutes?
Yeah, 2 hours and then another 17 hours.
I kept pausing it And I was like, oh, I have like 30 minutes left. And I pause it again, and it's like I have 74 minutes left. It's like just, but you do get the most insane epilogue at the end of this film.
What was the epilogue? I can't
when she's standing at the grave, and then the camera pans back, and there's a face.
There was a face?
There's a face in the snow.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
See? What? No. I was distracted by the appalling CGI in that last scene. There's no snow.
Oh god.
There's no fucking like graves or anything.
See the face.
And then so it's just for no reason. Oh, I've got to rewatch it. No, I'm not rewatching. I'm gonna
just go back and actually read our text.
But thank you for reminding me, because it's nonsensical what's happened. Then we get this, just like Ryan says, this last tack on. She's standing in front of the grave of the murdered girl that fucked her husband. Mm-hmm. And there's no like record. She just looks at it. It shows us the name on the grave. She walks away, and it goes, directed by Robert Zemeckis. And I just screamed, "You fucking kidding me? Like, that's the end of the movie?" I mean, I was so frustrated. There's a face at the end. Okay, I'm gonna look this up. Okay, is there a face at the end?
What was that Charlie Kaufman movie that was on Netflix not too long ago? It's like something like At the End of the World or something like that. It's I forget what it is, but there was a Charlie Kaufman movie that came out not too long ago that's very Charlie Kaufman, so it's very weird and like very much Kaufman out movie? There. Like it's a surprise. But there's a movie within a movie, like a fake movie that's playing, I think, in a theater or something that seems like really goofy. And the same end credit comes up. It says directed by Robert Zemeckis. And I guess during the making of Charlie Kaufman, like his editor put that in there as a joke. And Kaufman thought that was so funny. He's like, leave that in. That's so hilarious that there's this really depressing movie that says directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Okay, so I don't know if you can do, Ryan, can you allow screen sharing or anything like this? But I have found the face. It's pretty obvious. Will, you and I guess, were just so distracted by how much this movie sucks.
Just ready for those credits, like whatever.
So hang on, this is for anyone watching on YouTube. Otherwise, just go. Can you see it?
Oh my god!
I think you have it highlighted, so it's like, oh no, that's just how the quality of the movie.
That's just the quality. That's just so. There is, and I love it. So it's on. I do like this Reddit. It's r/movie details. And it's at the end of what lies beneath, you can see a face in the snow as the movie fades to black, possibly symbolizing the ghostly forces in the movie. I'm like, I honestly, because it's one of my other favorite Reddits is our shitty movie details where people are super sarcastic.
It's just cross-posted in the same way.
Yeah,
not even changed. I think we said like,
because we're dead on the inside.
Post-credits thing was Michelle Pfeiffer will return in what to? I can't beneath this shit happen again. Fuck yeah.
Oh yeah. Be crowdfunded. It's gonna be great.
So I cannot believe. I mean, I said it on the text thread, and I mean it when I say this. I'm looking dead down the camera when I say this. Worst movie on the podcast. This is the worst movie we've had, and we've had some garbage on this podcast. This is so bad.
We're not perfect.
Would this movie
have been better with a giant and spider invasion and some incest? Sure, but I'm not absolutely. A director. I'm not
100%.
Greg,
creepy cousin stuff.
It's just bad for bad's sake. Like, it's just a all around straight up bad film. Now I'm curious to see, our fans of the podcast. Like, I would love to hear from like defenders of this movie.
Yeah, do we have any big beneath heads out there?
It's just Robert Zemeckis counting money. Like Gus Van said.
Yeah, I'm busy.
I'm busy.
Oh, so sorry, you nerds hated it. I guess he's like burning cash with just light a cigar.
And the thing is, and Ryan brought it up. It came out the same year as Castaway, and like Will, you brought up like that it's made while they were. Castaway, the plane crash scene in Castaway is one of the most tense I've ever felt. I remember watching this movie with my friend Emily from college, And I didn't realize I was doing it until the scene finished, but I was squeezing her hand, like to the point of cutting off. She's like tapping my hand. I go, oh, sorry. That's what I mean, is that I know what Robert Zemeckis can do. This is in the same year, okay, with the same cinematographer, with A-list actors, and he couldn't elicit a single emotion from me apart from anger. But then I watched Castaway, and like I said, that plane crash, I've only watched that movie once because that plane crash scared the shit out of me. Yeah. And I'm like, and it will stick with me for the rest of time, but whenever people talk about movies or bad movies, I'm going to bring up What Lies Beneath. Wow, I cannot understand that movie.
I bet you'll never fucking go in a bathtub again. So there you go.
Look, I was going to say if Michelle Pfeiffer was in it, but honestly, if Harrison Ford was in it, I mean, like, I'd be tempted. I tell you, that guy. It's pretty good. That guy's hot. So I've got a funny feeling I know the answer to this one, but would you recommend people that watch or listen to this podcast watch this movie?
No, absolutely not. Don't.
I bought the 4K.
He's got the novel.
Yeah, here we go. I recommend, not only do you not watch this movie, but just to stick it to Robert Zemeckis, don't watch 2 other of his movies that are good. Just to send a message.
Anything CGI with Robert Zemeckis, just ignore it. But like, there is so bad, it's good. Yeah. There's so bad, it's entertaining. And then there's this. It's just straight bad. You're not going to get anything out of it. Like I said, watch In the Mouth of Madness twice.
And shout out to our buddy Adam, who is a huge fan of the podcast. I swear to God, if I see this fucking movie on your list of movies you've watched in the month, we're going to have some words.
Yeah.
He's going to take that as a challenge. He's definitely going to do it. But this is what's interesting, because of course, here we do on the podcast is we do like to find movies to represent the states. We are talking about now Dead Poet Society, interestingly shot entirely in Delaware. And guys, and when we will get to it, but if it's next week, I'm going to die. But Delaware is like a movie desert. There's maybe 9 movies to choose from. And the fact that Dead Poet Society is shot entirely there and then set in Vermont drives me crazy, because wow, it would have won for Delaware 100%. Yeah. Super Troopers is shot almost entirely in upstate New York. But What Lies Beneath, guys?
No.
Shot very, very much in Vermont. You're wondering where that $100 million went? They built that house, T to B, shot completely in it, which is why great sort of like production value, and you can look through the windows, it's less than but because it wasn't up to building codes in Vermont, they then had to burn it down and demolish it. But no, it was very much shot in Vermont, very much shot next to in Vermont. They did interiors and night shots and stuff, of course, were shot in LA. But no, this of all the movies is the only one shot in Vermont.
It does feel very Vermonty, though, but I think the lack of turtleneck wearing is probably worth a demerit or two.
Here's the argument I'm going to make. How much maple syrup are in these movies? Almost none, except for Super Troopers. True. I think that gives it 100 points in its category.
You know what, Will? That was the only thing I was going to bring up as well.
Yep.
Is that Dead Poet Society and it's something we've talked about before, and it does get very tricky in New England. It's because once you're up there, you've got these smaller states. They've got a similar history when it comes to the 13 original colonies. They've got this sort of like very much sort of similar sort of background. Whereas once you start moving across the states and you get to places like Arizona, you get to places like Texas, California, Oregon, New Mexico, they've got their own unique history and these moments and these parts of American history that are unto themselves. And it's like, so when you look at Dead Poet Society, it could have been in Connecticut or
Boston, Vermont, or
Massachusetts,
Rhode Island, for sure.
And it kind of like, it sort of blurs into it. And honestly, I was so surprised that when I got to What Lies Beneath and I'm looking, that of all the times, because how many lake movies have we had? I was like, is this the same place that they shot What About Bob?
That's what I said. Right? I said it's the same fucking house.
It's another lake house, but the fact that they actually went to Vermont, I'm like, oh shit. but I'm kind of with Will that I
don't think we can.
If I was a Vermonter, right, or Vermontarian,
Vermonty Python.
A Vermonty Python, yes. If I was a Vermonty Python, I think the movie that I would choose is Super Troopers because it's a bit silly, it's a bit goofy.
It was the most fun watch.
Play with the location, the whole Vermont sort of idea, and it is also just very, very silly. So I'm wondering what you guys are thinking. I know, Will, I think you're already on board the syrup train.
Yeah,
maybe.
Ryan, what do you think, buddy?
Oh, 100%. I mean, as someone with a Vermont style mustache, I can attest to that being the correct choice, because sometimes it's like we have to go on feel, but sometimes it's like what was just the most enjoyable film to watch? I think collectively we can agree we had the most fun watching Super Troopers. Because you're right. The whole time watching Dead Poet Society, and I try and find, like, as we're watching these, picking out, like, it's not just, I know you're all listening, it's not just about picking out the license plates, though there are some in this.
First 5 minutes of What Lies Beneath.
Yeah, that was the only one. Damn it. All right, that's What Lies Beneath.
No. About to go all Harrison Ford on you guys.
But yeah, trying to pick out, like, that movie did feel Vermonty, but Dead Poet Society too, like, I the whole time I think I'm like, oh, this could have just been set at any like prep school in that region. It didn't. Vermont wasn't like a defining character of it. But I think Super Troopers, you definitely have that, the Vermont State Police versus the city police, and it just kind of has that feel to it.
You can't take the Vermont out of Super Troopers.
I think we went to a similar thing with Rhode Island with Me, Myself, and Irene. It's kind of that, the Rhode Island State Troopers, you know.
and then we had to watch The Conjuring.
We got to watch The Conjuring.
I can't believe I'm going to say this / admit it to you guys, but you may be bringing me around on horror movies, because, like I said, watching how bad What Lies Beneath, like I mentioned before, made me miss The Conjuring, and I went, I can't believe I just said that. But yeah, you know, is that I'm interested. You guys, this is another thing that this podcast has done, but you pushed me into kind of digging them, like Barbarian. I've been talking to people about Barbarian a lot.
I tried to watch that the other night, and it's not even on HBO anymore.
Oh, that's criminal.
Yeah.
And then as Ryan, we have a little text thread. Honestly, I'm going to add you to this one. But we play Framed every day with our crew, like a bunch of guys, some of them from right this minute. And the last 2 days have both been from the podcast. And I'm like, first frame, done.
That one was my fucking pick, and I couldn't get it in one. I was like, God damn it.
Tucker and Dale turned up the other day.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's like, you know, there's a real thing, and I've definitely got this big hole in my movie lexicon, and that is horror movies. And as much of
Cannibal Holocaust is next. Let's get started.
Yeah.
Dive right in.
As much of a horror watch that What Lies Beneath was, there was nothing scary about it. But let's do it. Let's say, and I'm happy about this, and I felt it coming in. This is a bit of an open and shut case, but the movie to represent Vermont. Until we find another movie, What Two Lies Beneath? I can't believe this beneath again. Turns up.
I can't beneath the same shit happened to the same guy twice.
But we're gonna go with 2001 Super Troopers, directed by Jay Chandrasekhar, starring Broken Lizard and Brian Cox. Not available on streamers right now. You're either gonna have to find it on the internet or rent it. Like I did. But also at this point, I also like to jump in and try to talk about the also-rans when it comes to Vermont. The fact that Ryan's eyebrows almost escaped his entire head.
Yeah, I had because I had some. I have just to pull up.
Well, we already referenced Wolf, which, and it 100% does start in Vermont. He is bitten in Vermont, and then it takes place completely elsewhere, but still, so we almost had that. Any other movie?
I had one. I'd be remiss if my dear friends didn't, if I didn't mention this one for my dear friends, but a film called Johnny Tsunami, a Disney film about a surfer boy who moves to Vermont to then has to become a snowboarder.
That's the exact. Didn't we have our Alaska movie? What was that?
You're thinking of Out Cold.
Out Cold.
Yeah, was that? And that's another. And then okay, I saw
kind of.
that one.
It's the exact same plot to the film Airborne, which is going to be my Ohio pick, and I think we should all watch that together immediately.
But like, there are a lot of Vermont. I was tempted by it, and I'd never seen it. But the Owen Wilson Paint.
Yeah, I saw that on there. I
Which
haven't seen it.
Seems like a Bob Rossian sort of like pastiche 2023 Hulu movie. So it's just come out, but I don't remember seeing that. Another one was this Colin Firth movie. I remember like just Hope Springs. It was some sort of rom-com with Heather Graham. But outside of that, very few movies that I'd heard. Will, are there any sort of old style black and whitey Shane-esque movies that maybe you were circling?
No, a lot of these I looked, I hadn't really even heard of before, so I don't know. I don't know if that's a good sign. There wasn't like a whole lot that was like jumping out at me that I was like I needed to see. Yeah, Wolf was like my big, like, oh, this is gonna be great, and didn't work out. So
well,
I was also looking at Funny Farm was another one, the Chevy Chase film.
Yes,
and Baby Boom was another one I was gonna
Diane, what's her face?
That's where they blow up some babies, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And The Jacket?
There seems to be a lot of sort of almost Hallmark movie Christmas movies about Vermont. So I guess if we really want to torture ourselves, we might circle back.
That feels like that needs to be a whole episode. It's just covering all
a special episode for sure.
Like Spike Lee's Black Christmas in Vermont.
But yeah, really it's interesting. Like, I'm always fascinated by, some states you're so surprised that there are just reams of movies that you're just like, wow, that's insane. Whereas like, yeah, Vermont, it's got a few, and we definitely have, it looks like we're going to have to kind of like dig into historical movies. Like, it looks like the original Mr. Deeds was there, and then just so many of these kind of like interesting black and white movies that I'm like, all right, maybe we'll jump into it.
I think it's just called Mr. Deeds. I don't think it has anything to do with the Adam Sandler one, nor there's like another Mr. Deeds. I think it's its own thing. I looked it up. It's like its own weird. That's why I didn't pick it.
And then this one, The Legend of Billie Jean from 1985, a teenager from Texas and her brother Binks, who become fugitives after a confrontation and end up heading for Vermont. Okay, all right. Well, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. All right, guys. Well, look, this has been good. I've been interested. I cannot believe how bad that movie was. I've been gagging to talk to you guys about it. Thank you for allowing my wife to and not have to endure listening to me rant anymore about that piece of shit. Thank you for bringing Dead Poet Society back into my world. That was a good watch. Super Troopers was great fun, Ryan. But of course, we have to figure out, where are we going next? Let me just scribble out Vermont with a little star next.
Please don't be Delaware. Please don't be Delaware. Please don't be Delaware.
So we got a few. Let's have a look. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 states to go, guys. 9
Top 9, baby.
Let's see. Woo! All right, I'm going to throw my pen, whichever one it's pointing at, or closest to. Oh, that
and fight.
Ghosts?
So close to Delaware. But it's not Delaware, guys. No, but it's very similar. We're sticking in New England. We're going to Connecticut.
Connecticut? The haunting of Connecticut?
The Big Apple.
Yeah, the smaller apple. But yes, we're going to the state of Connecticut. That is where we're going to be going next week. So boys, put your thinking caps on. As always, can't wait to see which movies you bring to the table. To everybody watching and listening at home, please join in the conversations. I'm enjoying the comments on our YouTube videos. People are getting into it. I like it. I want to get into it. Don't forget, you can also interact with us and our terrible memes, apparently, on our Facebook page, the United States.
You post one hate crime meme and God.
Oh, is that where it was posted? I'm not on Facebook. So.
You can also find us on Reddit as well. But just come out and join the conversation. We really, really do enjoy it. You can find videos usually on a Monday from me, talking about movies and the movie podcast. You can find me as That Englishman in Texas on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, or you can find me as Ollie Pettigrew on Facebook. You can find Will as Entitled Millennial. He loves to, on TikTok, really dig into some old movies. He's got a lot to say about movies, and it's quite interesting. You feel like you're going to learn a lot. You can find Ryan nowhere. He's behind you right now.
You can find me drowning myself in a bathtub after watching this fucking movie. Just kidding.
But he does have some incredible designs, especially if you're a movie fan. I would recommend, as I mentioned, his redesigns of a lot of famous movie posters. They are excellent. You can also find some great sort of t-shirts and things like that from things we've talked about on the pod. You can find him as Rhino Digital, R-Y-N-O Digital. You can find him on Threadless and Etsy and everything else. Trust me, he is a Google away. For those of you that watch us on YouTube, thank you. I really enjoy it. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed our re-release last week, where we tried something a little different, where we actually had movie clips edited into the show. Yeah, I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go for it. I was up for it, which was quite fun. But also, thank you for commenting. Really do like talking to you guys. Yeah. If you don't already subscribe, do hit that notification bell. I know people on YouTube tell you to do that because it helps us. Yeah. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple or Amazon, like, rate, review. Tell your friends, bring them in on the community, start watching movies with us. Send us suggestions and comments. We love it. But from this episode, we're going to put Vermont to bed. Will, Ryan, as always. Boys, thanks for joining me on this show. Can't wait to see what you bring for Connecticut. I'll try and pick a better movie this time. So from Ryan, Will, and I, as always, thank you for joining us for this episode of the United States of a Movie podcast.